So I had an interesting dynamic in that, like I said, my family was very stable. My parents were the complete opposite of me, and I think that we tend to be the opposite of your parents. I heard that and a long time ago, and I've gathered evidence along the way. Like, for example, EJ is the complete opposite of me. Like, I'm 61, and the other night I went out to Zook, till 3 in the morning. EJ doesn't ever go out and he has no interest in it. You know what I mean? It's like you tend to be the opposite of your parents. So my parents were so strict and like so restrictive on my behaviors. Whereas like I'd leave town and I'd tell EJ, hey, you should throw a party. We have a sick house with a great pool and a hot tub and a water slide. You should have like the whole gang over here. And then they wouldn't do that. And then whereas with my parents would leave and they said, if you have one person in this house, you're gonna have hell to pay. And then of course the minute they leave, I have like the whole school over, like 200 people, and the police come and I get in all kinds of trouble. Somebody throws up, that's like
Project X.
yeah. So I digress. So yes, I have always been at risk. Like, so I think if you're an overprotective parent, you're going to end up having kids that are maniacs. Like my strategy was just let them do whatever they want. And then they became wonderful children. Both my kids are incredible. So my mom was really overprotective and strict. And that restriction on my behavior when I was younger, I think made me act out once I like got to college and got free. And so I'm a tremendous risk taker. And then also, because I'm not sitting here trying to rip on my parents, they offered an amount of financial stability. Like I think I'm very lucky in that if I ever felt like I had a problem and I was going to be homeless, I knew that would never happen. It was like, walking on a tightrope, but you have a net. Now I only used the net once in my life and I borrowed $30,000 from him in like 1991, when I was like, so I was what? Late 20s, just had my first kid. I just got upside down and I was in a real pickle. Credit card bills.
What happened, man?
I was involved in a business that just went tits up, and I had let my lifestyle get ahead of my income, or like, I mean, I was just doing things like, like you would probably recommend against, like I had a BMW 733, and a car phone, and like when they first came out, like the built-in one with the antenna on the back with a $1,500 a month car phone bill was very important. And then just all of a sudden my income went from like $30,000 a month to zero. And it just overnight went to zero. And I was like, oh, it took me a minute, to let my lifestyle calm down and realize that, this is a problem, regroup, refocus, find something else to do. And I just got into this, what seemed like an insurmountable amount of debt at the time, and I just said to my parents, I said, hey, I just need to borrow some money. And so like my point is that I was willing to take more risks because I knew I had a safety net. Like I said, I'd never really leaned on it because they were the last, like it was like the worst thing in the world asking my parents to borrow money, but I knew I'd never be homeless. So I was willing to take more risks. Yeah, that makes sense.
How difficult was that to readjust your lifestyle?
Very difficult. But I think it's what made me who I am. Like I can, you can knock me down. Unless I don't ever get up again, like I'm going to come back stronger than ever before. And that's what I always did. So I was pretty into personal development, and I had learned about goal setting and all that kind of stuff. And one of my favorites was Tony Robbins. And so when that happened, I was so depressed. So I was like, after I got done feeling sorry for myself, and my wife said like, okay, what next? I really like Tony Robbins. And I said, well, I want to go work for Tony Robbins because I think the guy's awesome. And I've been to one of his seminars and I go, wow, the guy's like the best speaker I've ever heard. So I just kind of put that out there that I was going to work for Tony Robbins. And I found a franchisee, friend of a friend, who he used to have these franchises up in Oregon. And I moved to Oregon, worked for Tony Robbins, got my headspace back in order. And then I ended up getting a job selling like videos, producing videos and stuff for that industry, so I kind of became a vendor, which kind of distanced me from it a little bit. And I did really, really well at that too. Like every time I made any kind of career change, I always ended up doing better. The most recent of which now all of a sudden I'm a YouTuber. And thanks to my son and my partner, WBG, Robert, these guys are brilliant. We all have incredible work ethics, and we're doing quite well at this because I'm putting the same 18 hours a day, focused intensity, all the things I did my whole life into doing this. And I encourage anyone that wants to do YouTube to do it. Everyone always wants to, there's 100 channels that start every single month. It's just like everything else. 99% of them fail because it's harder than it looks. Here, you're going to have obstacles, etc.
Yeah. So that seemed like it was your biggest net worth swing in the negative direction. What was your biggest positive net worth swing in your life?
I don't know, probably when I inherited my parents' money. I mean, that's kind of a, sound kind of lame, but I'd say like about half my money came from my inheritance. I inherited it thanks to my parents working hard their whole life, being smart, probably investing like you. My dad would never have bought a Starbucks in his life. I did inherit a few $1,000,000 and that was really helpful.
That lead towards the retirement, or was that post-retirement?
No, it was post-retirement. I had saved a few $1,000,000 and I had a bunch of properties myself, but then you layer on another few million and then all of a sudden you're really comfortable. But then I'm so glad that I didn't just sit there and lead like this comfortable life and go out with pasture and try to, how can I play video poker every day and, lead a small life with like $10,000 or $15,000 a month budget to pay my bills. This is the greatest thing that ever happened because I'm like rejuvenated and I'm literally working as hard or harder as I've ever worked in my life and helping my son, get financially independent. What are you, 32?
30.
Your sister's 32. I kind of knew that. He's 30 years old. By the time he's 35, guaranteed the kid will be set for life, all from his own doing. I think that's cool. So it's fun to be able to work with your kid.